having to do things a little bit differently tonight. And I apologize for that. You guys watching online, thanks for joining. Wilma, good to see you on there. Um, we won't be doing any music tonight. That's just because the singer's out of commission. He's got a pretty good bass voice going on right now. But that's all. We're gonna save it for Sunday. So, but I do feel better than I did last night a little bit. So hopefully it'll just keep getting better and better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the discussion in the Bible study, and we're gonna go for a few minutes, and then we're going to do some Bible trivia tonight. And we have actually cool prizes to give away. I don't know if you like chocolate covered cherries, but if your team wins tonight, I think we have enough to give a whole team out a box of chocolate covered cherries. So that'll be great. So you guys that aren't here, sorry. I wish you guys would come. You can get in on some of this action. But anyway, so we're going to do, there is a study guide I had on the table right in the center. If you guys didn't get that, grab that and we'll work our way through what was the third message in the Revelation series, and it was titled Patmos. Patmos. And let me get my notebook open here. All right. All right. I hope everybody's been enjoying the Revelation series, and I promise now after this past Sunday we are taking a breather. But this Sunday I was really blessed with the message itself and a lot of great comments. And I had a pastor friend of mine send me a Facebook message today. He said, "Hey, can you send me your notes on Revelation 12?" And I said, "Well, as long as you don't call me a heretic." You know, I was joking, but just wanting my perspective and take on that, because he's preparing a Christmas message that'll journey through the whole Bible. And I told him, I said, this was pretty much a 30,000-foot view. I could have done about 3 sermons from Sunday, but and my preparation again last week in trying to condense all that down was a task, but it was so worth it. And to see Jesus through that scarlet thread, if you will, weave its way through the entire Bible, and then notice that the war was raging from beginning to the cross there. That's as far as we took it. We could have gone further. There's some other things about how the dragon would continue to go after the woman. But nonetheless, the gospel was preached, and so I'm grateful for that. So we'll pause, and even this Sunday, John Malick's going to bring a message Sunday to give me a breather so that I don't wear myself out for Sunday night. And he's going to do a great job. I'll be there helping with music and all, but I'm going to take a breather Sunday morning, and hopefully my voice will be back. Y'all pray for Samantha. She's also sick. She's not doing well at all. She's supposed to sing too. She's more like, I don't feel bad, I just sound bad. She feels bad. So if you would lift her up in prayer. I think I'm just I have no idea. It's like the 4th time this year I've had something like this. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, maybe I'm just I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm around kids too much, or who knows? Who knows? But yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. So I try. I wash my hands and use hand sanitizer and all of that. But it just gets me. I guess a lot of singers feel the same way. It always gets us singers. Anyway, so this is, and we'll hurry. Well, we won't hurry. If we have to stop, we'll pick it up again next week. This is a good discussion, mainly about John and his testimony. What Sermon 3 was about. And I will start this tonight with this quote that I have at the top of your sheet here. The Christian who resisted to partake of such sacrificial feasts socially ostracized himself. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about the Roman Empire, specifically in the time period when John wrote the Revelation. And the province of Asia, where the seven churches were situated, if you study your history, was one of the most prosperous parts of the Roman Empire. Very wealthy cities. You study the history of Ephesus and some of these places. Their wealth was very visible in the splendor of their buildings and also in their religious worship. And if you just look at the archaeological finds from these time periods, the magnificent architecture, and all of these public and private sacrifices were performed with this lavish, large sums of money and to goddesses and gods. And so these were large spectacles of public worship and scenes of indulgence. And so the Christians who resisted to partake in these things, they were basically, ostracizing themselves or putting themselves in a position of castaways, if you will. And yet, to partake of these feasts meant grave moral temptation. And so, on this quote here, I just put, it's no wonder that some of the churches actually were willing to compromise. And if you think about it, we're so quick to go, that church, they just compromised, didn't they? Or we're just quick to jump on somebody, but we have to also be careful, because we're tempted to do the same thing. And these churches were faced with fierce pushback to the truth. And so John's having to write letters of correction and letters of he's preaching to them for a decision to be made. And so, and then we talked about that Sunday, there was another form of paganism and heathenism, which no Christian could avoid. And can anybody fill in that blank? Anybody remember what that was? Is that blank on your paper? Is there a blank? Okay. Yeah. Anybody want to take a guess? It was actually, I believe, that one of the highest forms of paganism and heathenism. All right, I'll give it to you. I don't think I have this on here. Well, I do. Well, sort of. It was emperor worship. And they exalted the emperors up as deity. And when it came to that, no Christian could avoid that. They could keep themselves distant from social or commercial life if they tried. But when it came to emperor worship, it was really imposed on the citizens of Rome, no matter their race or religion. And many times Rome would be like, hey, you can worship whoever you want, but then they would impose this on the citizens. Oh, but Domitian, for instance, it was at Pergamum that a temple was constructed in his honor, in honor of Augustus, and then his successors were in turn deified. And so Domitian, who I believe reigned in some of Revelation, I believe Nero as well, he was called our Lord and our God. And so this Caesar worship became like a unifying religion in the Roman Empire. And so it was encouraged by officials. I've got this on your notes, I think, yeah. In many of the cities and provinces, it was encouraged by officials and priests as a matter of policy. And so, again, just think in your mind of a country today where Christianity is outlawed, in many ways, I don't know that it was outlawed in such a way that it was outlawed in such a way that was policy that you had to worship. At least you had to worship or deify the emperor. And so, something to think about, right? Why were the Christians claimed as criminals then? If we're going to deify the emperors, why would they look at them as criminals? Well, they refused. These are right answers. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else got an answer there? So why were the Christians looked upon as criminals in the Roman Empire? Well, there we go. So we just said the emperor was deified, but they refused that. They claimed Jesus was their king. And when that rumor starts going around and that word starts to spread, there you go. That's why they were viewed as criminals. And so, again, I just put in there, for whom was the book of Revelation written then? Not a modern answer, in the context. The 7 churches in Asia Minor. Okay. All right. Let's read Romans 1, 9 through 11 together. And, all right. By the way, any thoughts on any of that, right quick, before we move on? Yep. Well, I think we talked about it last week. Not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. What did the high priest say to Caesar when Jesus was on trial, if you remember? Well, the high priest said, "We serve no king but Caesar." And so, when you got some guy claiming he's the king of the Jews, and then the high priest comes in and does not recognize him as Messiah, and then he makes the statement, I think it's found in the Gospel of John, we have no king but Caesar. Well, there you go. They are totally behind. Now, I don't think that the high priest or the priest in the temple, I'd have to study that. If you're asking if they were okay with deifying emperors, I'm sure they found loopholes, because they always found loopholes to get around some of that. Yeah. So that's a great question, though. We do know that they weren't pro-Jesus. They crucified him, and then they still didn't listen to the apostles, which eventually led to judgment in 70 A.D. and the destruction of the temple. All right. Are you asking a question or making a statement? I'm not following you. So say that again. I'm trying to follow you. Right. Sure. Yeah, but I think in the context, Jesus was on trial for being proclaimed king by some followers. I mean, when he rode in on a donkey, they were Hosanna in the highest. So I think in that context, they had a problem. And again, they're proclaiming a Roman emperor to be king. So then there's that. You have to think about that. But yeah, I think historically they didn't have a problem. They wanted a king. But now to be okay with the deification of a king, I can't see that the temple law-abiding, especially the priest and the leaders in the temple, would be okay with that. But I'd like to study that out now that we've brought it up. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now I was following you the second time. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think though that what the high priest is doing there with Caesar is denouncing Jesus as their king, as the Messiah, and you know, I think that it was all heated. You know, they were. It ended in the mockery with the sign on the cross. Um, in that regard, but I don't. Again, I don't think, like in my mind, and this is just coming off my head. I don't think they'd have been okay with deifying the Roman emperors, but they sure did politically coexist with them. Yep. Let's read these verses here, and let's move ahead. Revelation 1:9. I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos on account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, saying, write what you see in a book and send it to these 7 churches, to Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. So I love what Scott McKnight says here. He says, with one eye on Rome and the other eye on these 7 churches, John chose to communicate with them in a way that had a lasting and sometimes bizarre legacy. And, you know, think about this. Long before John, and by the way, I'm convinced, and sometime after the first of the year on a Wednesday night, I'm going to show y'all some really cool things about John's gospel and Revelation that are actually kind of mind-blowing. I am convinced that he is the writer, because there are some scholars who think that it was another John. I'm convinced that it's John. I'll share some reasons why, but later. But long before he wrote Revelation, he'd been teaching and preaching the gospel of Jesus. He was the beloved disciple, right? And so this made the empire nervous. From our perspective today, you know, and again, we look at it from a 2023 American church cultural lens, but the response that Rome has for John, like, we're like, man, that's a little overkill, right? I mean, why in the world worry about this religious old dude? Like, he didn't have an army. He didn't have any weapons. He had a few pockets of people singing songs about Jesus and meeting and, you know, praising him and learning about the one who they claimed as Lord and King. But the powers that be came after these people, and specifically John. And you might ask why. Well, you know, we've come to this question before, and I think I shared this with you the Sunday a few weeks ago. But Jesus told them, didn't he? Remember? John 15. And John records it. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. He says, if you were of the world would love you as its own, but because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of this world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant's not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. And so, like, again, this ties right back to this past Sunday. We can't, my mind can't grasp, like, Christianity is if Jesus says the first shall be last, the last shall be first. Love your neighbor, turn the other cheek, go an extra mile, do the things, you know, it's a love-based, sacrificial, serving-based, quote-unquote religion. Well, what in the world's going on? Well, there's a bigger battle going on. That's what we need to understand. It's the war we talked about Sunday. The cosmic war. The cosmic Christmas war. Right? And there's a war going on that we just completely can't see. And Jesus is talking about being hated and persecuted by the empire, or even by the religious establishment, by the way. But underneath it all are the powers led by who? AKA the dragon. And we looked at that Sunday. The dragon. And so the powers of the Roman Empire, the powers of the Babylonian Empire, the powers of Egypt back in the days of Moses, the powers of those who actually built the Tower of Babel or Babel, the powers that were in the garden, the dragon. There's this underlying current, there's this war, there's this battle. And so, the Roman Empire, the rulers of the world, they lived in suspicion and fear of these little pockets of churches, Ted, because of their powerful influence in their communities. Let me say that again. They lived in fear of these little pockets of churches because of their influence. All because, you claim somebody else is king. Well, Caesar is king. But in the end, they're worshiping another king. And he's really in control of what's going on here. And, it's interesting. These pockets of believers, their lives pointed to a hope, a better day, a better kingdom. The kingdom that has no end. Their witness and testimony proclaimed Jesus as Lord and King. So this was something that made the powers nervous. It seems to always do that throughout history, right? So I asked this question a few weeks ago. I'll ask it tonight. We got about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to the quiz master. I'm going to give my vocal cords a rest. Is there anything about me? Is there anything about you? Or is there anything about our church that makes the powers nervous? That's the question that came to my mind. The rulers of the darkness of this age, perhaps the powers are not nervous at all because there's nothing in our lives or our church reflecting the goodness of God and His glory and the power of God being seen on it. I'm not saying it's not, but maybe at the church overall, maybe that's why you see more spiritual warfare in other countries and around the world. And here's why, maybe. Let me find it. Oh, I need to go back here. I forgot about this. I put on here Ephesians 6. Forgot about this. I got ahead of myself. Ephesians 6. You guys know these verses, right? Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of His might. Put on the full armor of God so that you'll be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the full armor of God that you will be able to resist the evil day, and having done everything to stand. And so, I put this in your notes in that little block, but powerless Christians merit no attack from the enemy. Why bother? I don't know. I could really preach here for a minute, but everything may be rosy and financially secure in churches, and somebody sent me this. It was ridiculous. I am gonna preach for just a second. Give me a second. They sent me this video of and it just says Christmas at mega churches in Texas just hit different, and they had drummers coming out of the rafters on cables. And they had people swinging in, and just, it was like a Mannheim Steamroller concert. I mean, okay. I'm not saying you're wrong for doing that, but I'm like, come on, really? Sometimes I think the dragon is like, psh, I don't need to mess with those people, And look, I don't even know who they were, so I'm not sinfully, coming at somebody. But it's like, come on now. It looks silly to me. Now, maybe I should move to Texas and see for myself. But, maybe a trip to Texas, just a trip to Texas. But I believe this right here. What are we really doing? Are we trying to reach people for Jesus? Are we standing for truth in a world that is anti-Christ? These are things that matter, and these are things that are important. And then, then I think if we're doing those things, we will experience some pressure. And that's where you have to sit back and go, okay, it's okay to have pressure. It's okay to get pushback from the enemy. So I've heard this many times, and I don't think it's a cliche. We must be doing something right. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're bragging. It's like, I got 5 of my singers that sound like me right now for Sunday. What are we going to do? I don't know. We're going to stand up and sing the gospel Sunday. We're going to do it. That's what we're going to do. You say you think that's an attack of the enemy? I don't know. It could be. Why? Well, because we're going to sing the gospel. That's our main goal Sunday night. It really is. Like, do we want to put on a nice show and it sound good? Sure. And we've worked so hard, like since the beginning of October, or even before that. But there's 4 or 5 of us. Like, I talked to Zach last night. He goes, "Hey, buddy," and he's like coughing. They've been really sick for about a week. Y'all pray for them. It's just okay. My wife, she's supposed to sing in it. She's pumped about it, and she's not. So I'm not saying, oh yeah, we're doing it right here. We got it. But I'm saying the focus of a body of people should be Jesus. And when it is, I think that there will be some of this. Y'all get me? You understand? Okay. Yeah. 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 Mm. And is it frightening to some degree? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to come under spiritual attack. I've had very real encounters in my life. And, I mean, a couple of them are like bona fide ghost story. They're not ghost stories, but they feel like that. I feel like they're real. And it doesn't mean that, we're perfect or that we're some holy group of people. We are holy and set apart by God because we're redeemed. But it does mean that in my heart, in my soul, I do want to make a difference for the Lord. I do want to be pleasing to Him. I do want our church to know the Word of God and to follow His will and His way. And I think that's all the difference. And it's not about some big production and so that we can build some kingdom here. We're about His kingdom. At least I am. And I hope that you're following me in that regard. All right, I just added this to the end of that. There was something about John that made the powers nervous. Does my life make the powers nervous? And I put that in your notes. All right, 1 minute. We're going to go 1 more minute. Revelation, so then watch this. You guys fill in the blanks. Revelation is not so much a book about a blank out of this world. Very, very, very popular word there. Anybody? Rapture. But it is a book about faithful discipleship in this world. And I believe that to be true. And, we're going to talk about the rapture down the line. I've got one whole sermon I'm going to dedicate to it. But I believe you're missing I believe we're missing the message of the book if that's all we focus on, right? This message is about calling believers to faithful discipleship. So the last blank is faithful discipleship in this world. Faithful discipleship. Not going to read 1 John 2:15 through 17. You guys know that. Love not the world. John is the same author. He's given us the same message. Don't love the world, neither the things that are in the world. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. That's all, dragon representing stuff. And that's where he goes there. And then we can read through the last part of these right quick. You can read those. I'm not going to read through those. Persecuting a distant disciple will not deter them, and that was preaching points that I had in my message. I just put them in your notes. I do want to just give you this right quick. Martin Luther King said that Christians should be a transformed nonconformist, and I like that. And whatever you feel about Martin Luther King, this is a great quote. Transformed. This is what we are to be, according to Corinthians, right? Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the nonconformist is we're not going to conform. That's those Romans 12, 1 and 2. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so we're to be transformed nonconformists. And I just like this quote. The only thing that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's a good quote right there as well. We'll finish with this one. It's in your notes. You can fill in the blanks. John saw too much Rome in the church and not enough church in Rome. And that's why he wrote those letters. And some of you might be asking, when are we going to get to those 7 churches? It's going. I'm laying that foundation. All right. I hope that it's been a blessing to you. All right. Any questions right quick before we turn it over to, we're going to do some Bible trivia. I'm excited about that. Saving my voice tonight. Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It was, and it was unstoppable. The church is it's still unstoppable. So no matter what they did, it was unstoppable. The gates of hell will not prevail against his church. Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I'm trying to say is, well, Christianity is actually a nonviolent, it's love and serve, but it just, that's why I think underneath it all is the enemy, the real enemy. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. And however he controls the empirical system, that King Jesus is a threat to, therein lies the threat, really. But yeah, you're right. It was fast growing. All right, Josh, you ready? Oh, well, okay. Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. I skipped that. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Right. Mm. Yep. Mhm. Mm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Mm. 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 Yeah. Yep. It's good. That's a great thought. It is a self-sacrificial, self-denying, self-killing. I hate to use that word, but I mean it's biblical. Die to self. Yeah. All right. Awesome. I'm gonna turn it over to you. Let you come take over. All right, y'all don't leave. We're going to have some fierce competition. You guys that joined us online, I think Jake's cutting the feed off at this point because you won't be able to hear what's going on, really. So, love y'all. Thank you for joining. Sunday's going to be a huge day. Be with us 10 o'clock a.m., Christmas celebration, and then Christmas at Oaklawn Sunday night at 6. God bless. All right. I'm going to